People like to believe their lives collapse with a single moment: a car accident, a harsh diagnosis, a breakup text at 2 a.m., something big enough to point at and say, that's when everything changed. Ada Onu's life did not break like that. It began to come apart in smaller ways: missed calls, unfinished sentences, a laugh that lingered a little too long, the kind of tiny shifts no one notices until there's nothing familiar left to hold on to. Ada liked things she could predict: the click of the office door at 7:59 a.m., the kettle's soft whistle in the break room, the way the sun hit the window beside her desk at exactly 10 past 3 every afternoon. On good days, she could map her entire life between those little markers and call it peace. Her necklace rested at the base of her throat, an old silver piece with a faint scratch on the surface. Her father had given it to her when she got her first job. Consistency, he'd said, tapping the pendant, is how you outlive chaos. She had believed him. Sometimes she still did. On the last Monday that still felt safe, Ada reached the office before everyone else. She always did. The security guard greeted her by name. The cleaner nodded and shifted her bucket aside without looking up. Ada walked to her desk, straightened a stack of files that no one else would have noticed, and turned on her computer. The familiar hum settled her lungs. At 8:03 a.m., she sent out the weekly report. At 8:17, she corrected a typo in a colleague's document without mentioning it. At 8:41, she reminded her manager he had a meeting in 19 minutes. These weren't heroic acts. They were small, precise stitches in the fabric of her day. At 9:02, her phone buzzed. "Coffee tonight? I need to rant before I explode," Tara wrote. Ada smiled at the screen. Tara's messages were always dramatic, like voice notes trapped inside text. "After work? Same place," Ada replied. The same place was a small cafe that smelled like burnt sugar and old wood. They'd been going there every other week for nearly 5 years. The barista no longer asked for their orders. Ada got black coffee. Tara got whatever looked interesting enough to photograph. That evening, the cafe was half full. The noise was low and warm, like conversation wrapped in blankets. Tara sat by the window, phone in hand, screen lighting her face with a pale artificial glow. Ada walked in and saw her before Tara looked up, saw the way her shoulders slumped, the subtle tightness around her mouth. "Hey," Ada said, sliding into the chair opposite. "You look like your battery is on 10%. Tara let out a short, sharp laugh. "Try 2%. I had a strategy session with Darius today." Ada frowned. "The online coach? Don't call him that. He hates being called a coach," Tara said, rolling her eyes. "He's a systems architect for human potential." Ada raised an eyebrow. "I'm definitely calling him a coach then." Tara smiled, but it didn't linger. She shifted forward, lowering her voice as if the sugar packets on the table might be listening. "He said something today I can't get out of my head." Ada wrapped her hands around her cup, letting the heat sink into her fingers. "What now?" "If your environment doesn't force you to grow, you must destroy that environment and build a better one," Tara recited almost reverently. "He said people are held back most by the ones who love them." Ada blinked. "Sounds dramatic." "It's not. Think about it," Tara insisted. "Who stops you from taking risks? The people who don't want you to get hurt. The ones who say, be realistic." He asked us to list our anchors: friends, routines, habits, everything that keeps us comfortable. There was a pause. Tara's gaze lingered on Ada a fraction too long. Ada laughed lightly, trying to cut the tension. "Well, congratulations, you've joined a cult." Tara's jaw tightened. "Just because you like being predictable doesn't mean everyone else does." The words stung more than Ada expected. She swallowed, the coffee suddenly bitter. "I didn't mean, it's fine," Tara said quickly, leaning back. "I'm just tired. Forget it." Ada could have pushed then. She could have asked why Tara's eyes were glossy, why her fingers drummed the table like she was tapping away a nervous thought. But confrontation wasn't a language Ada spoke. Instead, she changed the subject, gently steering them toward safer ground. Work, a new series, a mutual friends engagement. Still, the sentence lodged itself somewhere under her ribs. "He asked us to list our anchors." Later that week, Ada's manager, Mr. Dozy, called her into his office. His expression was neutral enough to be frightening. "You've been here. What, 6 years now?" he asked, flipping through a file that didn't need flipping. "7," Ada replied. And in those 7 years, how many times have you made a serious error on a route? Ada's heart began to tap against her ribs. None, sir. He nodded slowly, as if confirming something only he could see. That's what I thought. He slid a thin envelope across the desk. For a moment, Ada's mind leapt somewhere dangerous. Termination, complaint, failed audit. But when she opened it, all she saw was a single printed letter. A promotion. Small. Quiet. A step upward in title and pay. Her throat tightened. I didn't apply for. You didn't need to, he cut in. You've been doing the work already. Might as well pay you for it. She left his office with the letter pressed to her chest, the necklace cold against paper. It wasn't a dramatic milestone, but it felt like proof that maybe her father had been right. Consistency could still matter in a world that worshipped spectacle. She told Tara that night via voice note, smiling into the darkness of her room. They gave me a small promotion. Nothing crazy, but I don't know. It feels like I'm allowed to breathe a little. The reply came hours later, long after Ada had fallen asleep. Proud of you. Really. We'll celebrate soon. Just swamped with this new growth program. Darius thinks I'm sitting on a ceiling I need to break. There was a second voice note attached. Ada played it in the morning as she buttoned her shirt. Tara's tone was lighter, joking. Just don't leave me behind when you become boss, okay? Ada laughed to herself. As if, she muttered. She didn't hear the faint strain under Tara's words. Didn't see the way Tara sat on her bed that night, phone in hand, rewatching Darius's latest stream. On screen, he paced in a minimalist room, hands cutting the air like a metronome. Comfort, he said, is the most seductive form of self-sabotage. If you're surrounded by people who praise your stability, they are praising your smallness. You must remove what keeps you still. Cut your anchors. Tara's list of anchors had 3 names on it. 2 she could justify easily. The third stared back at her from the page, Ada. She didn't cross it out. She didn't circle it. She just sat there, the pen hovering above the letters, while the coach's voice kept urging, a controlled burn is better than slow decay. Outside, the city's lights flickered. In Ada's apartment across town, the new letter of promotion sat tucked carefully in a drawer beneath old utility bills. She straightened it once before closing the drawer, the way she straightened everything. She had no idea that somewhere, in another room, someone she trusted was beginning to think of her not as a friend, but as an environment that needed to be destroyed. The shift didn't arrive like thunder. It arrived like a draft under a door, something you only notice when the room is already cold. The week after Ada's promotion, conversations in the office changed in ways too subtle to name. People used shorter sentences. They nodded less. A junior staff member who usually asked Ada for help walked past her desk twice, pretending not to see her. None of these things meant anything individually, but patterns always begin as dots. At home, Ada rested the promotion letter on her bedside table, beside her necklace and a half-finished novel. She stared at it longer than she intended, trying to feel proud. Instead, she felt something unfamiliar. Guilt, as if she had taken something meant for someone else. She didn't know that Tara was sitting across the city in her living room, scrolling through Ada's celebratory text with a face that looked more like grief than envy. Tara replayed the voice note, listening not to Ada's joy, but to the spaces between words, the places where silence revealed fear. She believed, with unsettling conviction, that Ada was stuck in a life too small for her potential. Tara wasn't planning to destroy her. She was planning to free her. The danger of people with missions is that they rarely realize when the mission is madness. The first test happened on a Thursday night. Tara sat at her laptop, the glow washing her face in pale blue. A spreadsheet of small accounts sat open, anonymous handles, burner emails, proxies, not created for malice, at least not at first. She had used them to boost her own engagement, test algorithm patterns, push topics into micro-communities. This time, she typed a different name into the subject field. Ada Onu. Only one line. Not an accusation, not an insult, just a seed. I heard someone in your logistics department is manipulating route assignments for personal gain. You might want to check the coastal manifests. No names, no claims, just enough to shift suspicion. She sent it to a discussion forum frequented by mid-level managers in the industry. Then she closed her laptop, heart pounding, not with guilt, but with adrenaline. She told herself it was a stress test, a harmless simulation. She told herself that if nothing happened, she'd delete everything and move on. She told herself many things. None of them included the truth. She wanted to see what broke first, Ada's environment, or Ada's belief in it. Ada woke before dawn the next day, unaware that her name had already been mentioned in a thread she would never see. She tied her hair, buttoned her shirt, reached for her necklace, and stepped into the morning as though the ground beneath her was still the same shape. The first sign came in a small gesture. Her login credentials required a manual override. It happened occasionally when the system refreshed. Nothing serious. But when she walked into the break room, the usual good morning murmurs didn't ripple. One woman looked up, opened her mouth as if to speak, then dropped her eyes and stirred her tea in silence. Ada's stomach tightened. She poured her coffee slowly, as though control of her hands kept control of her thoughts. At her desk, she found a printout waiting. Her promotion letter returned to her inbox with a note scrawled in pen. Need clarification on your involvement in coastal assignments. Her breath hitched, but she kept her posture even. She reread the line 3 times. The promotion had nothing to do with coastal routes. The question made no sense, unless someone wanted it to. That evening, Ada met Tara again, this time at a street-side shawarma stand rather than a cafe. The air smelled of diesel, pepper, and night rain. You look tired, Tara said, unwrapping her foil. Work? Ada's first instinct was to say no, just busy. But something inside her shifted, faint but real. There's been confusion, Ada said carefully. Someone thinks I manipulated assignments. Tara paused mid-bite. Did you? Ada shot her a look, sharp, wounded. Of course not. Tara held her gaze a moment too long. Not accusing, not sympathetic, simply watching, eyes narrowed as if studying cause and effect. Maybe this is good, Tara said finally. Ada blinked. How? Pressure exposes what we actually want, Tara answered. Maybe this is your push to leave that place. You've been there too long. Ada stared at her, unfamiliar cold settling between them. Not every test is a sign, Tara. Some things are just cruel. Tara's expression didn't crack. If anything, she looked offended. You think I'd want something bad to happen to you? Ada sighed. I think you want things to happen fast, and I don't. Silence settled like dust. They ate the rest of their meal in short sentences and long pauses. That night, Ada washed the dishes in slow circles, warm water fogging the air. She breathed, trying to let the tension dissolve. Her necklace slipped from her collarbone and tapped the ceramic sink with a soft, metallic note. It should have been comforting. Instead, it sounded like a warning, small, metallic, precise. She dried her hands, checked her phone one last time, and went to bed early. Across town, Tara wrote 3 new bullet points in a private folder. Not a diary. Tara didn't believe in emotional archives. This was a strategy log. Goal: force disruption, spark movement. Obstacle: Ada's contentment. Method: external pressure, triggered indirectly. She stared at the last line, exhaled, and shut her laptop. Outside, Lagos hummed with distant horns, generators, and restless ambition. The city didn't know 2 women inside it had started drifting apart. It would know soon enough. The following Monday arrived with the kind of quiet that feels staged. The office lights flickered awake, the printers whirred, keyboards tapped, but something underneath had shifted. Not loudly, not obviously, just enough for Ada to feel watched without seeing the eyes. Around noon, she stepped into a departmental briefing. Normally, she sat beside 3 colleagues who always saved her a seat by habit. Today, the space beside them remained empty, their chairs angled inward as if forming a circle she wasn't meant to enter. She sat alone. Mr. Dozy entered, brisk and unreadable, tapping a pen against his clipboard. The meeting started, but halfway through, as he glanced over his notes, Ada saw his eyes flick up to her with a strange mixture of suspicion and disappointment. He looked away just as quickly. Ada's pulse crawled up her throat. That look wasn't confusion, it was doubt. The meeting ended. As people filed out, she reached for the door at the same time as a junior analyst. He stepped aside, not out of courtesy, but with a subtle recoil, like he didn't want to brush against her sleeve. She walked to the restroom, locked a stall, and sat with her forehead against her knees, trying to breathe. Nothing had happened, yet everything had changed. Later that evening, Ada left work slowly, her bag heavy on her shoulder. She replayed the day in fragments, glances, swallowed sentences, half nods. They formed a pattern too fragile to name out loud. She considered calling Tara, then stopped herself. Their last conversation still lingered like smoke. She wasn't sure if Tara would comfort her or analyze her. Instead, she walked home. The streetlight outside her building had burnt out days ago. It cast the road in a dim, uncertain glow. Ada climbed the stairs to her apartment and unlocked her door, motionless for a moment before stepping inside. Her room was neat, predictable, safe. She dropped her bag, sat on the couch. Only then did she notice her hands shaking, not dramatically, just enough that she had to lace her fingers together to keep them still. She stood abruptly and walked to the kitchen. Turned the tap, watched water fill the sink. She washed a glass she had already washed that morning. Her movements were controlled, mechanical. But when she moved to set the glass on the counter, her fingers slipped, not from clumsiness, but because her grip failed entirely. The glass fell. It didn't shatter loudly. It simply fractured, sharp, white cracks spidering across the tile like frost. Ada stared at it, not blinking, not breathing. That was when she understood something was wrong. Not with work, not with coworkers, but with her. Her body knew before her mind did. This was not stress. This was erosion. Meanwhile, across the city, Tara sat cross-legged on her bed, laptop open, headphones in. The live stream glowed on her screen, Darius pacing under studio lights, speaking with the kind of conviction that makes insecure people feel chosen. His tone was measured, persuasive. Most people stay ordinary because they keep people around who like them ordinary. Comfort is a prison built by loved ones. The comments section overflowed with affirmations. Tara typed quickly, "What if the person you care about doesn't realize she's stuck?" Darius read comments aloud sometimes, scrolling at random. He paused, squinted, and selected hers. "If they don't realize it, that's even more dangerous," he said. "Sometimes you have to disrupt someone's life for them to wake up." Tara's breath caught. "Some relationships need conflict to evolve," he continued. "If you truly love someone, you push them into growth, even if they think you're the enemy." Tara's pulse throbbed in her neck. It felt like permission. She closed the laptop, sat still in the dark, and whispered to no one, "Then I'm doing the right thing." The second test wasn't digital, it was social. Tara attended a mixer with other creatives, writers, photographers, brand managers. The room buzzed with ambition disguised as networking. Drinks clinked, compliments disguised competitiveness passed like currency. Someone mentioned Ada's promotion. A casual remark, not malicious, but Tara tilted her head, pretending to think. "She works in logistics, right?" "Yes," the woman replied. "She seems responsible, very organized." Tara hummed. Sometimes organized people struggle when responsibilities scale. Stability doesn't always translate upward. The sentence was vague enough to sound like insight, harmless enough to escape scrutiny, and heavy enough to plant doubt in the right ears. She said nothing outright, just enough air to bend perception. By the time the night ended, 3 people left believing Ada had peaked early. 2 days later, Ada received a message from her brother. "Michael, you've been quiet. Don't disappear on me." Ada typed and deleted 3 replies. Then finally, "I'm okay, just tired." Michael called immediately. "Ada, that's not a real answer." She smiled despite herself. "I know. What's happening?" She leaned back against the wall, eyes closed. "I think something's shifting at work. People are acting strange. I can't tell if I messed up or if I'm imagining it." There was silence on the line. Then Michael spoke, carefully. "Is this about that friend of yours? The loud one?" Ada frowned. "Tara? No. Why would?" "Just be careful," he said. "Not everyone clapping is celebrating you." Ada's hands tightened around her phone. "You sound like those toxic quotes people post online." Michael exhaled. "Maybe. Just don't ignore your instincts." She ended the call with a soft promise to visit soon. Then she stood alone in her apartment, the city hum seeping through the window, the broken glass still on the kitchen floor. That night, Tara sat on a bus, scrolling through voice notes. She hovered over Ada's messages, not to reply, but to re-listen, searching for evidence of smallness. She convinced herself she was diagnosing, not spying. Her reflection flickered in the window, sharp jawline, bright eyes, a woman who looked like she knew where she was going. But somewhere beneath the surface, a new thought formed. If Ada won't choose growth, I'll choose it for her. The bus rattled along the dark road. The world outside blurred. In another part of the city, Ada swept the broken glass into a dustpan and stared at the fragments under the kitchen light. They looked like pieces of herself, sharp, reflective, impossible to put back exactly the same. She brushed them into a bin, washed her hands slowly, and turned off the light. The room went dark. Something in her life had cracked. She just hadn't named it yet. Morning came without ceremony. Ada woke before her alarm, staring at the ceiling while dawn shifted from gray to faint gold. Her eyes felt heavy, not from lack of sleep, but from holding emotions she hadn't allowed to fully surface. She got dressed slowly, buttoning her shirt with practiced precision. The necklace slipped into place as usual, but today she didn't touch it for reassurance. She walked to work, headphones in, music low. People passed her in clusters, laughing, arguing, navigating life with the casual ease she envied. For the first time in a long while, Ada felt like a quiet observer in her own city. At the office entrance, the security guard, who always greeted her warmly, hesitated before lifting his hand in a small, unsure wave. The shift was microscopic, but Ada felt it. Inside, she placed her bag by her desk and began reviewing route schedules. Numbers steadied her. Numbers obeyed rules. Numbers could be verified. People couldn't. By mid-morning, an email alert blinked at the corner of her screen. She clicked, expecting a routine request. Instead, a PDF loaded, scanned documents highlighting discrepancies in a coastal route schedule. Only, they weren't hers. The edits had her digital signature. The timestamps matched her login hours. The formatting matched her style. But Ada had never touched those files. A hollow sensation bloomed in her stomach. She zoomed in. Someone had copied her work style down to the spacing between numbers. A chilling detail, the kind that suggested familiarity. She minimized the document, breathing slowly, refusing panic. Instead, she requested system logs from IT, framing it clinically, routine audit. She didn't want to raise flags before she understood the shape of the threat. She stood to refill her water bottle. On the way to the dispenser, she passed two coworkers whispering near the hallway printer. They didn't stop talking when she approached. They simply lowered their voices, eyes flicking in her direction, continuing as if she wasn't there. She walked past without reacting, but her throat burned. When she reached the kitchen space, she heard footsteps behind her, soft, quick. A junior colleague she'd mentored for 2 years approached, awkward smile plastered on. "Hey, Ada, congrats again on the promotion." Ada turned, forcing warmth. "Thank you." The woman hesitated. Just so you know, people are saying things. I don't believe them, but I thought you should hear it." Ada froze. "What things?" The woman shifted uncomfortably, twisting her ring. "Just rumors about how you got the promotion, who you're aligned with." The implication wasn't spelled out. It didn't need to be. Ada inhaled sharply. "Who started it?" "I don't know," she whispered. "I just be careful." Ada nodded, managing a soft thank you. When the woman left, Ada leaned on the counter, eyes closed. Her breath trembled. Not fear, not anger. Something more dangerous, realization. Someone was orchestrating this, and they understood her well enough to mimic her digital habits. Across the city, Tara sat at a co-working space, laptop open, earbuds in. She had multiple windows up, not malicious, not overt. Workflow charts, behavioral analysis, notes on audience engagement. A private folder lay minimized at the bottom of the screen, titled Unsent Applied Pressure Models. Inside were drafts, unpublished, unshared, but detailed enough to map social influence patterns. Not marketing, not sabotage. Something in the uncanny middle. She tapped her stylus against the table, eyes narrowed. She didn't smile. She was thinking. There was a difference. Her mentor's most recent video played quietly in one ear. "Sometimes people stay small because the world never forced them to choose, and sometimes you are the force." Tara whispered, "Then maybe I'm the fire." She believed it. That was the problem. On Wednesday night, Ada finally agreed to see Michael. They met at a quiet grill joint near his apartment. The smell of roasted pepper and charcoal hung heavy in the air. Michael watched her closely as they ate. He didn't push, he waited. Eventually, Ada set down her fork and said, "Something is happening at work. I don't know if I'm being targeted or if the whole office just changed overnight." Michael leaned back, arms crossed. "Who would target you?" Ada hesitated. The obvious name surfaced. She crushed it before it reached her lips. "Tara?" Michael asked anyway, reading her silence. No, Ada said too quickly. Why would she? Sometimes the person who pushes you isn't pushing you forward, Michael said quietly. Sometimes they're pushing you off balance so they don't feel alone. Ada frowned. That sounds cynical. He shrugged. It's life. Ada looked away, fingers tightening around her glass. I trust her, she whispered. Michael sighed through his nose. Trust is fine, just don't let it blind you. Later that night, Ada sat on her bed, laptop open, studying the altered route documents again. This time, she noticed something tiny, barely a pixel difference, a formatting quirk she'd seen once before. Not at work, on her shared document with Tara from months ago, back when she helped Tara with a freelance proposal. A faint, impossible correlation. Ada closed the laptop abruptly, pulse thudding, refusing to believe what her mind was piecing together. Not yet. She lay back slowly, staring at the ceiling. The quiet wasn't comforting anymore. It felt like footsteps approaching. Meanwhile, Tara stood at her bathroom mirror, removing makeup in slow, deliberate strokes. Her eyes looked tired, not from guilt, but from purpose. She stared at her reflection long enough to make herself uncomfortable. Growth requires destruction, she murmured, as if testing the words. But for the first time, her voice wavered, just slightly. That night, both women slept uneasily. One sensing danger without evidence, one convinced she was saving someone from mediocrity. The city outside continued, cars, generators, laughter, storms. But beneath it, threads were tightening between two lives that had once moved in gentle parallel. Soon they would pull, and something would tear. If this story pulled at something in you, don't stop here. Episode 2 is where the silence turns into consequences. Tap subscribe and turn on notifications. You shouldn't miss what happens next. The cracks are only beginning to show.